Hi friends, myself Aniket Renavikar, Assistant Professor, Center for Distance Education, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. In the course MCom Valuation of Real Estate, in this, in semester first, the subject is elementary surveying. In that, the unit number 5 is leveling. So today we learn the topic leveling. In this topic, we can learn the objectives of leveling, object and use of leveling, various definitions of levelings, different types of levels, description of dumpy level, leveling staff, diaphragm, points to be remembered by staffman, points to be remembered by levelman, procedure for use of compass, temporary adjustment of level, types of leveling operation, principles of equalizing backside and foresight distances, correction to be applied, sensitiveness of the bubble, reciprocal leveling, and also the methods of calculation of reduced level. In that there are two methods, the collimation method and the rise and fall method. And how to we write the all readings in the level book and various problems of this. These are the description, these are the points to be covered in this leveling chapter today. So we can start with the first is we can learn about the objective or use of leveling. Main object of the leveling is the aim of leveling is to determine the relative heights of different objects on or below the surface of the earth and to determine the undulation of the ground surface. The main aim of leveling is to determine the relative heights of different objects on or below the surface of the earth and to determine the undulation of the ground surface. This is the main objective of the leveling, and leveling are the used in various purposes. First is to prepare a contour map for fixing the sites for reservoirs, dams, barrages, etc., and fix the alignment of roads, railways, irrigation canals, etc. Second is to determine the altitudes of different important points on a hill or to know the reduced levels of the different points on or below the surface of the earth. To prepare a longitudinal section and cross section of project, roads, railways, irrigation canals, etc., in order to determine the volume of earthwork. Also to prepare a layout map for water supply, sanitary or drainage scheme. These are the various purposes we can use the leveling. Next we can see the various definitions which are used for the leveling instruments or objects. So that is the first is the leveling. Leveling is the art of determine the relative heights of different points on or below the surface of the earth is known as leveling. We can already discuss about this. Thus leveling deals with the measurements in a vertical plane. This is the leveling. Next is a level surface. How we find out the level surface? Any surface parallel to the main spheroidal surface of the earth is said to be level surface. Any surface parallel to the mean spheroidal surface of the earth is said to be level surface. Such a surface is obviously curved. The water surface of a still lake is also considered to a level surface. Next point is a level line. Any line lying on a level surface is called level line. This line is normal to the plumb line at all points. In the plumb line means the direction of gravity. Next point is a horizontal plane. Any plane tangential to the level surface at any point is known as horizontal plane. The tangential level of the surface is at any point is known as horizontal plane, or it is perpendicular to the plumb line, which indicates the direction of gravity. Next is a horizontal line. Horizontal line is the any line lying on the horizontal plane is said to be horizontal line. It is a straight line tangential to the level line. Next is a vertical line. Vertical line is the direction indicated by the plumb line, or the direction of gravity is known as vertical line. This is perpendicular to the horizontal line. Next is a vertical plane. Any plane passing through the vertical line is known as vertical plane. Next is a datum surface line. This is an imaginary level surface or level line from which the vertical distances of different points above or below the line are measured. In India, the datum adopted for the Great Trigonometric Survey (GTS) is the mean sea level at Karachi. This mean sea level is found out in the Karachi, and in that point we can all reduced levels are carried out. Next point is a reduced level or RL. We can also, in short form, this is the RL. The vertical distance of a point above or below the datum line, or datum line means the mean sea level. Datum line is known as reduced level of that point. The vertical distance of a point above or below the datum line is known as reduced level of that point. The reduced level of point may be positive or negative according to that point is above or below the datum line. Next is a line of collimation. Line of collimation, it is a imaginary line passing through the intersection of the crosshairs at the diaphragm. It is an imaginary line passing through the intersection of the crosshairs at the diaphragm and the optical center of the object glass and its continuation. It is known as line of sight. Next is the axis of telescope. This is the imaginary line, or this axis is an imaginary line passing through the optical center of the object glass and the optical center of the eyepiece. It is the imaginary line passing through the optical center of object glass and optical center of the eyepiece. Next is the axis of bubble tube. It is an imaginary line tangential to the longitudinal curve of the bubble tube at its middle point. Next is a benchmark. These are fixed points or marks of known reduced level or RL determined with reference to the datum line. These are the fixed points or marks of known RL determined with reference to the datum line. We can consumed or assumed to be 100 is a datum line, is a benchmark. We can assume in many cases. These are very important marks and they serve as reference points of finding the RL of new points or the conducting leveling operation in projects involving roads, railways, etc. Benchmarks are of the four types. There are four types. First is a GTS, second permanent, third temporary, and fourth is arbitrary. For first, GTS benchmarks. These benchmarks are established by the Survey of India Department. These benchmarks are established by the Survey of India Department at large intervals all over the country. The values of reduced levels, the relevant positions, and the number of benchmarks are given in a catalog published by this department. These GTS benchmarks are published by the Survey of Indian Department, which are already done the survey of that. Next is a permanent benchmark. These are fixed points or marks established by different government departments like PWD, railways, irrigation, etc. The reduced levels or RL of these points are determined with reference to the GTS benchmarks and are kept on permanent points like the plinth of the building, parapet of a bridge or culverts, and etc. Sometimes they are kept on underground pillars. So in that, these permanent benchmarks are carried out by the established by the government of like various departments like PWD, railways, irrigation, etc. and these are find out with reference to the GTS benchmark, and it is located in a permanent points like plinth of building, parapet, bridge, culvert, etc. Next is a arbitrary benchmarks. When reducible levels or RLs of some fixed points are assumed, they are termed as arbitrary benchmarks, and these are adopted in a small survey operation when only undulations of the ground surface is required to be determined. Only undulations we can find out, then we can use the arbitrary benchmarks. Next is a temporary benchmarks. When the benchmarks are established temporarily at the end of the day's work, they are said to be temporary benchmarks, or they are generally made on the root of a tree, a parapet, or nearby culverts or posts on a similar place. These are the various types of the benchmarks. Next point is a backside reading, or we can also use short form BS. This is the first stop reading taken in any setup of the instrument after the leveling has been perfectly done. This is the first point or first stop reading taken by the instrument after the leveling. This reading is always taken in a point of non-RL, that is on a benchmark or a change point. Next is a foresight reading. FS is denoted by FS. It is the last stop reading in any setup of the instrument and indicates the shifting of the latter. It is the last point of the instrument when we can set up the instrument or change the instrument. Next is the intermediate sight reading, IS. In any other stop reading between the PS and FS, means backside reading and foresight reading, the setup of the instrument is all points are carried out in the intermediate sight reading. Next is a change point. This point indicates the shifting of an instrument. At this point, on FS is taken from one setting and BS is taken from next setting. This is the change point. When instrument is changed, we can first take the FS, and then from next setting we can take the BS for foresight reading and backside reading. So in that case we can this point is a change point. Next is the height of the instrument. When the leveling instrument is properly leveled and the reducer levels of line of collimation is known as the height of the instrument. When the leveling instrument is properly leveled, the RL of the line of collimation is known as height of the instrument. This is obtained by adding the BS reading, means backside reading, to the RL of the benchmark or change point on which the stop reading was taken. Next is a focusing. The operation of setting the eyepiece and object glass a proper distance apart for clear vision of the object is known as focusing. The operation of setting the eyepiece and the object glass a proper distance apart for clear vision of the object is known as focusing. This is done by turning the focusing screw clockwise or anti-clockwise. The function of object glass is bring to the object into focus on the diaphragm, and that of the eyepiece is magnify the crosshairs and object. Focusing is done in two steps. First is a focusing the eyepiece. A sheet of white paper is held in front of the telescope, and the eyepiece is turned clockwise and anti-clockwise slowly until the crosshairs appear distinct and clear. We can, in this eyepiece is turned clockwise or anti-clockwise slowly, and then we can appear the crosshairs are distinct or clear vision, then we can stop there for the focusing. Next is the focusing the object glass. The telescope is directly to the object and the focusing screw is turned clockwise or anti-clockwise until the image is clear and sharp. Last point is a parallax. The apparent movement of the image relative to the crosshairs is known as parallax. The apparent movement of the image relative to the crosshairs is known as parallax. These are the various points or various instrumental devices which are used for the leveling. So friends, today we stop here. We can learn this lecture is object and use of leveling, various definition. In that definition we can see the leveling, level surface, level line, horizontal plane, horizontal line, vertical plane, reduced level, line of collimation, axis of telescope, bubble tube, benchmark, various types of benchmark, GTS benchmark, permanent benchmark, arbitrary benchmark, temporary benchmark. Next we can see the backside reading, how we can take on foresight reading, intermediate side reading, change point, how we can change the point, height of instrument, focusing the eyepiece, object glass, and the parallax. So friends, today we stop here. Any query or any doubt, you can mail to the following mail ID: cd_multi@unishivaji.ac.in. Thank you very much.